MGTOW guys, and even many, if not most, blue pillars, unless they've dedicated themselves to the art of dogged inobservance, are fully aware of the frustrating nature of standard or accepted female behavior. The stuff everyone expects you as a heterosexual male to put up with and not bother anyone else about. That's the price you pay to get laid, bucko, so get on with your life and stop complaining. It runs the gamut from the more tolerable yet still irritating shit, like the unending fake-up routine every morning, and taking over your living space once you're seen as boyfriend material, to the more troubling stuff like incessant nagging, head games, and shit tests, to the deal-breaking stuff like mindless consumerism resulting in crushing debt that you, the man, will be held responsible for, and of course, cheating. Now, it's one thing to deal with all of that, quote, normal, unquote, conduct from women, but the problem as I see it is that each day the world caves a little more to the pressure of creeping gynocentrism and rabid feminist demands for special treatment cloaked in the guise of equality. And as a result, what was once understood as female psychopathy or bad behavior or even mental illness is now being viewed as ordinary. It is being included under the umbrella of normal female behavior that you must tolerate or be ostracized as a misogynist. Now, I won't be presenting any statistics or scientific papers in this video to back up this claim of mine because no one, to my knowledge, is studying this subject, shall we say? I doubt you'd last very long in academia these days if them bitches be getting crazier was the focus of your research. But I'm not an avid reader of psychology journals, so I will happily stand corrected here if something like this is in fact going on. I'd be very interested in reading such studies, as a matter of fact. Instead, what I'm going to do is let the examples I'm about to provide speak for themselves and argue the case for me. And these are by no means exhaustive. They're just the ones I've stumbled across recently. I suppose I could waste a lot of time combing social media and news sites for more instances of female psychosis, but the simps who regularly deal out the pussy passes in the face of the clarity of blatant cases aren't going to be convinced by volume either. So what's the point? You either want to recognize reality or you don't. And if you don't, nothing I do or say on my little channel will prevent you from dismissing it and continuing down your blissfully ignorant path in life. Good luck with that, by the way. I'm going to start off light and easy, and you might even get a chuckle or two out of it at first, because viewed from a certain "this really isn't parody" kind of perspective, these things can be rather humorously absurd, but it will get worrisome and sobering soon enough, trust me. And you can think of this video as a follow-up to my recent upload entitled Me Too Has Released the Female Kraken, and a continuation of the idea that Me Too and the so-called women's liberation movement will merely result in female ruination in the end. This is not me crossing my fingers for it to happen, it's just an inevitability. I will link to that video below in the description box for those who have not seen it, and you can also find my sources for this one there as well. Since it was International Women's Day recently, let's start with something related. The Independent compiled a list of recommended tourist destinations for adventurous women traveling alone. And you can't even make this shit up because topping the list was hiking in Morocco. That's right, hiking in Morocco. For those of you who have been keeping up on current events, I feel like giving you a few minutes to laugh, maybe till you cry. But for those of you who haven't, it was only a few months ago that two young women, one from Norway and one from Denmark, I believe, following the liberating advice of such feminist travel guides, did that very thing. They went hiking together in Morocco and were promptly beheaded by Muslims wishing to level up their terrorist game. Their executions were recorded on their cell phones and uploaded to their Facebook accounts and whatever social media to horrify friends and family and to impress the leaders of ISIS and Al-Qaeda or what have you. And the Independent would like to make sure women remember to purchase and don designer You Go Girl t-shirts before boarding a plane and heading to Morocco for their own beheadings. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, this is just an article, misguided to be sure, but what does it have to do with female psychopathy? Well, everything actually. I want you to meet its author, and I want you to consider the type of person who would be so self-absorbed and thoughtless as to write such a frankly disturbing and dangerous piece. It could only be a woman, and a progressive feminist one at that. And if you're like me, you've probably dated the type, unfortunately. A person so egotistical cynical, so self-involved, so dedicated to her own toxic mix of arrogance and ignorance that she never hesitates to self-reflect and consider how destructive her self-aggrandizing, career-first behavior is. One can only hope no young women follow the, advice, let's call it, in this article, but if they do, I suppose it's merely natural selection, weeding out those who can't recognize narcissistic personality disorders in their feminist mentors when they see them. Okay, but maybe you're not convinced by this first example. Well, we're only scratching the surface here, so let's go deeper. Meet BuzzFeed and Marie Claire author Jen Winston. Her entire Twitter account is, predictably enough, a study in mental disorder bordering on paranoid feminist schizophrenia. But let's get right to a couple more choice selections. Walking the streets of New York with arms crossed, folding into myself, hiding from every man I see. It feels disgusting to exist in the world when the world is so clearly not your own. It's like any of these men might grab me by the neck at any moment just to remind me who's boss. Now, is she LARPing here as a deranged woman for the attention? Possibly. I don't know. But it really doesn't matter because even attention whoring like this is itself a sign that something is not quite right inside her head. And you have to wonder how many undiagnosed, certifiable women are walking around out there, hallucinating in overdrive that men they see are out to get them. And how often is their abnormal behavior dismissed by the brainwashed normies as dedication to the ever-spreading society-wide mental illness that is feminism? Oh, she's not crazy. Men are toxic. Yeah, that's why she's doing that. Jenny's demented ideas are, like the Independent article, truly dangerous and unfortunately out there for the programmed masses to absorb and embrace. Look at the likes her tweets get. Who are these people and why are they supporting this behavior? To further the point, let's take a look at Jen Winston's thoughts on Lorena Bobbitt, as if her recent celebrity and Amazon show weren't proof enough of what I'm getting at here in this video. I remember watching Lorena Bobbitt's story on a tiny, bulky TV. I was 8. In 1994, the media and their dick jokes made it all too easy to vilify this woman. I'd barely heard the word penis before, and yet I had already been primed to think that damaging one was unthinkable. I remember thinking, how could she have done that? And not, wow, what did this guy do to make a woman cut his dick off? Fast forward to last night. To set the scene, I am 30 and a raging feminist killjoy. I don't think you have to tell us that, Jen. Patently obvious. I had the privilege of watching 2 episodes of the Amazon Studios docuseries about Lorena. Now she uses her maiden name, Gallo. And just damn. The series clearly highlighted the rampant sexual violence and abuse and xenophobia Lorena was subjected to, and all of it from the person she loved. There's just so much wrong and troubling in that tweet storm. I don't even know where to begin. But first of all, Jen, it's unthinkable to damage any part of anyone's body. Okay, do you understand this? I know you're obsessed with penises because you're a feminist, and all the Freudian cliches apply to you, but cutting off John Wayne Bobbitt's finger would have been bad too. Do you understand this, Jen? I mean, let's just start at a basic humane treatment level here. Nobody should have any parts of their body cut off, okay? That's why people were trying to get it across to you as a kid that it was unthinkable, but you were resisting because you're a psychopath. There's something mentally wrong with you that you don't understand this simple lesson. As far as the, quote, rampant sexual violence, abuse, and xenophobia, like that's a crime now, unquote, that Lorena suffered, assuming that's all true for a moment here, do you understand that she needed to get out of that abusive relationship? And I don't want to hear that women can't leave abusive relationships because they're subjecting themselves to potential retaliatory violence. I'm pretty sure if you cut off someone's genitals, you're risking, to a much greater degree, retaliatory violence. Anybody who survives getting their genitals cut off is going to want to kill you, okay? Cutting someone's genitals off is not a safer decision than leaving the relationship. And yet, here you are, asking the question like it's reasonable, wow, what did this guy do to make a woman cut his dick off? There is something seriously wrong with you, Jen, okay? But of course, the truth is that the rampant sexual abuse, the xenophobia, Give me a fucking break. All of that is nonsense. The reason John Wayne Bobbitt got his dick cut off is because Lorena thought he was cheating on her. That's it. Infidelity. Not any of the domestic violence that probably was reciprocal. In other words, Lorena was engaging in it too and maybe even instigating it. All right? None of that is the reason why she assaulted him and removed a body part. She's psychotic like you, so she didn't like the fact that she got cheated on, so she went after him with a dull kitchen knife. And now, let's go back to the idea that it is all true. That he was just the worst husband imaginable. Beat her constantly, tied her up, did all kinds of weird, non-consensual stuff to her, violent stuff. Let's assume all of that went on from day one of their marriage, until she cut his penis off and they got divorced or whatever happened after the trial. I guess the idea is we should craft a society where impromptu, at-home, genital mutilation with ordinary kitchen implements and without sterilization, anesthesia, or means to stop the bleeding is acceptable punishment before you're even arrested, let alone tried. Now, Jen, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that your opinion is, paradoxically enough, that amateur clitorectomies or tit amputations performed on women accused of the same crimes, sexual, domestic violence, and the non-crime of xenophobia, I'm going to say that even if they were proven guilty in a court of law, unlike John Wayne Bobbitt at the time that his penis was cut off, he was just lying in bed sleeping. He had not been approached by the police yet because of complaints filed by Lorena. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this to you would prove how evil and misogynistic our society is. That's because, again, you're mentally ill, Jen. And so are the people eating up this bizarre chain of tweets from you about Lorena Bobbitt and liking and retweeting and such and replying in positive fashion. But I think that's enough of Jen Winston and her followers. At least I've had enough. If you'd like to, you can certainly browse her Twitter account at your leisure. Now, you'll have to excuse the pun here because we are about to cut closer to the mental illness bone with this next article. A Camas, however you say that, woman pleaded guilty to trying to kill her live-in boyfriend with a samurai sword after she claimed to find a Tinder dating app on his phone. Emily Javier, 31, will face up to 20 years in prison for attempted first-degree domestic violence murder, according to the Colombian. She will be sentenced on March 11th. The grisly attack drew national and international headlines last year, both because of Javier's choice of weapon, as well as her boyfriend's easygoing attitude about the whole episode. I was just so proud for beating this samurai wannabe crazy lady with hate in her heart, an upbeat Alex Lovell, then 29, told the Oregonian/Oregon Live from his hospital bed. Javier told police she had hatched the brutal assault on Lovell because she discovered he had a Tinder dating app on his phone and suspected he had been cheating on her, records show. She also fumed over his penchant for playing video games, according to a probable cause affidavit. Enraged, Javier said she went to a shopping mall and purchased a samurai sword. She said she then spent the next week stewing and plotting her revenge before whipping out the saber and repeatedly slashing Lovell in bed during the wee hours of March 3rd, 2018. Lovell, who admitted to playing video games 12 hours a day but insisted he was never unfaithful, suffered life-threatening injuries, including wounds to his torso, neck, and the left side of his head. His index finger and ring fingers were nearly lopped off at the base, though doctors managed to reattach them, he said. Though facing months of recovery, Lovell remained positive. I was able to Wing Chun my way to survival, he said, referring to a traditional Chinese martial art that focuses on close-range combat. I've been preparing my whole life for something like this. When someone goes after you with a samurai sword, if you survive it, you are going to suffer connective tissue, arterial, and nerve damage, among whatever else, that you will be dealing with for the rest of your life. You'll never be the same. There's no way around it. Credit to this guy, I suppose, for laughing it off as best he can and wearing it as a red badge of courage and just wanting to get back home and play some more video games and continue bothering no one and doing nothing that comes close to deserving being carved up with a medieval weapon, who can blame him for remaining calm, cool, and collected when most people would be seeking violent retaliation? What other choice does he have, all things considered? At any other point in human history, other than the present bizarro world feminized one we live in now, this bitch would have been rightly removed from the gene pool, so that she and her mental illness genes could no longer pose a threat to the rest of the population. But in 15 years, she will probably have her own show like Lorena Bobbitt, and psychotic BuzzFeed feminists will be arguing he got what he deserved for the unforgivable crime of checking out Tinder profiles in between sessions of leveling up on World of Warcraft or whatever. I suppose he's lucky Emily Javier isn't related to Lorena Bobbitt, because we all know what she would have gone after if she were. And finally, I want to get away from the typical feminist trappings and talk about a problem that pervades all of Western society. Now, to be sure, all the little progressive and intersectional BuzzFeed and independent journalists out there are guilty of this too, but really so is everyone else. And I'll even go ahead and throw myself in the mix, because I do at times fall prey to this thinking, or lack thereof. And that is how we all view legitimate, inarguable psychopathy on the part of women. Or more to the point, how we label or define it, or maybe more importantly, how we do not. The best example of this is female sexual predators. And we are going to springboard off the usual complaint that their crimes are rarely called rape. We are now at the point where we have so many examples of them habitually preying on children that we almost take it for granted. Even after they are caught, convicted, and jailed, they return almost immediately to the same criminal activities once released. Often this is because they were given more lenient sentences than their male counterparts, and were therefore afforded the opportunity to reoffend. But forgetting that for a moment, why are we not calling them what they truly are? They are serial rapists. And boy, do people really not like when I say this. But too bad, too fucking sad. Let's take a look at the loaded way that serial rapist is defined and how we all, more often than not, again myself included, think of the term. A serial rapist is a person who rapes more than one person over a period of time. Some serial rapists target children. Notice how the definition is clumsily, or perhaps carefully, crafted and excludes female predators who usually prefer to rape the same victim over and over again. Now, there's nothing about the meaning of serial that assumes unique or changing subjects unless it's attached to the word rapist for some reason. The only thing that's implied is repetition or recurrence. In fact, a series or a serial on TV assumes sequential episodes of the same program. You're not watching different shows when you watch a series. You're watching installments of Cosmos over and over again, or some soap opera, but the same soap opera. So why, when combined with rape, does it automatically default to a variety of victims? The definition is crafted to only include deviant male sexual behavior. So ask yourself why that's the case. This is again creeping gynocentrism that we're not paying attention to, myself included. This is the same phenomenon I mentioned in my Tolkien series. We have allowed people with a vested political interest to take control of our language, take it from us, and dictate its meaning and acceptable usage back to us. Okay, I could make this video longer, and I could go over many, many more examples of female psychopathy becoming normalized. But I think it's a good time to wrap this up and let everybody take a breath and consider what I've said here. It's all incredibly frustrating because you can find minimal signs of improvement here and there if you look hard enough. For instance, authorities are waking up little by little to female criminality. And sometimes, very rarely, admittedly, women are in fact given tough sentences like men. But the rabid feminism of the political left is working in overdrive to erase this progress. And most conservatives are all still recovering from a virgin mother hangover, where they think women are saints who can do no wrong. And even if they're not Christians and are some sort of right-wing pagan like Varg or whoever, they've got strange fertility goddess hang-ups where they can't avoid putting women and their hallowed uteri on pedestals anyway. And here are we MGTOW guys, as usual, left dealing with the fallout and being shamed relentlessly for opting out and not wanting to put up with the bullshit. So like I predicted in the female Kraken video, things are only going to get worse before and if they get better. All right, everyone, I wish I had a more optimistic ending, But that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next upload.